Hello, everyone, and welcome to STG205, Protecting Critical Data with Ease using Amazon EBS Snapshots. Thank you so much for attending our session. I'm Surbi. I'm the product manager for EBS, and along with me is JP.
Hi, myself, JP Jayaprakash Velisamy from SAP. I'm heading business continuity architecture team at SAP. And yeah, happy to be here and present about the EBS Snapshot features. Thank you.
And hi, everyone. My name is Denton He. I'm one of the other product managers on the EBS Snapshots and volumes side.
All right. So today we are obviously going to be focusing on EBS Snapshots. So first, a question. How many of you are already familiar with EBS Snapshots? OK, looks like quite a lot of you. And how many of you have used or are currently using EBS Snapshots? OK, that makes my job a little easier. But yeah, so today we are going to focus on EBS Snapshots, how they work, what they are, and how you can use them. So that is going to be the first part of the session. Then we'll talk about some of the security aspects related to EBS Snapshots. So a lot of organizations are very interested in making sure that they can enhance the security posture of their backups. So we'll talk about some features that help you do that. Then JP will take over, and he'll talk about SAP RISE and how they are implementing immutability plus ransomware protection for their SAP solution. And then Denton will take over and talk about data protection. All right, so before we dive into snapshots, let's spend a minute talking about our overall storage portfolio. So at the heart of your data architecture is where you put your data. And AWS has a number of solutions that are tailored to your needs. So in the middle, as you can see, we have our core services. So for object level storage, we have S3, which you might be familiar with. For block level, we have our very own Elastic Block Store, or EBS. And for file level storage, we have EFS and Amazon FSx. On the right, you can see our hybrid and edge-based capabilities, along with some of the data movement services like AWS Data Sync and AWS Storage Getaway. And on the left, you'll find our data protection and workflow services, such as AWS Backup and EBS Snapshots. All of these solutions, they integrate seamlessly with each other, and they help you achieve your goals, help you build secure and reliable data estates. So now let's double-click on our block storage portfolio. So we think about block storage in terms of two broad categories. So one of them is instance storage, and the second one is Elastic Block Store. So instance storage is nothing but the temporary storage that is attached to your EC2 instance. So for an example of SSD storage, think of your i4 instances. And for HDD storage, think of your D3 instances. In Elastic Block Store as well, we have examples of SSDs such as GP3 and IO2 volumes. And for HDD, we have SC1 and ST1 volumes. All right, so now let's talk about snapshots and what they are. So customers use snapshots to back up their EBS volumes. The first thing to know about snapshots is that they are point-in-time copies of EBS volumes. So by that, what we mean is that each snapshot has all the data that is required to restore the volume to the state in which that snapshot was taken. So when you create a volume out of a snapshot, it begins as an exact replica of the original volume. And the cool thing about that is that the data is always loaded in the background. So what that means is that you can start using your volume immediately. The second thing to note about snapshots is they are incremental. So what that means is that only the data that has changed from the point you took the last snapshot is stored in the current snapshot. So that helps you out with two things. First of all, it increases the speed at which you can create the snapshot. And it also helps you save on costs because we are not saving full copies of data every time. A lot of our customers also have large databases or file systems that are spread across multiple EBS volumes that might be attached to a single instance. So we offer the capability to, just through a single API call, you can take a crash-consistent snapshot. So you don't have to stop the instance. You don't have to coordinate the data between volumes. With a single API call, you can take a data-coordinated crash-consistent snapshot. So there are four main use cases for which our customers use snapshots. So the first one and the primary one that most of you might be familiar with is backup and disaster recovery. So customers will back up the data in their EBS volumes using snapshots. They might also copy that data to other regions or accounts for disaster recovery purposes. The second use case is what we call the refresh, scale-up, and data handoff workflows. So in this case, a lot of our customers have organizations that have large number of business units, and each of these business units have a multitude of accounts. So there might be a central team that builds the latest version of an Amazon machine image or AMI. It might have the approved logging and monitoring. It might have the latest security patching. And what they want to do is make sure that every team in the organization is consuming the latest AMIs. So in this case, snapshots or EBS-backed AMIs are very beneficial. The third use case, which is sort of like a non-EBS use case, is that snapshots can also be used to just back up the data in your data centers and then restore that to the cloud. So that is something that a lot of customers use snapshots for. And lastly, a lot of third-party solutions have built solutions on top of EBS snapshots. These are automation and orchestration solutions that help customers meet their recovery point objectives as well as recovery time objectives. All right, now let's get into some of the basics. So this is how snapshots work. So let's say I create an EBS volume. I provision 1 terabyte of data in that volume, but I haven't written anything in that volume as of now. So it's basically like an empty volume. So if I take a snapshot of this volume, what happens is that snapshot is also going to be empty. So I won't be build anything for it because there is no data that has been written to that volume. But let's say in another example, I write 3 blocks or 3 files of data to my volume and then take a snapshot. So in this case, snapshot 1 will contain 3 billable blocks or 3 files that I wrote to the volume when the snapshot was taken. Let's say I write 3 more files and take another snapshot. So in this case, what happens is that blocks 4, 5, 6 are the incremental ones. So when I think about snapshot 2, those are the blocks that I will be built for, and blocks 1, 2, and 3 will be referenced from snapshot 1. And just taking this example further, if I add another 3 blocks, in this case as well, those 3 blocks are part of snapshot 3, but blocks 1 to 6 are again being referenced from snapshot 1 and snapshot 2. So just to recap, these are a few of the key things to remember related to snapshots. The first one is that they are point in time. They contain all the data required to restore a volume. They are incremental in nature, and you are only charged for the changes or the incremental blocks between 2 subsequent snapshots. All right, so now let's talk about some of the security aspects. So a lot of our customers are looking to just overall enhance the security posture of their backups because they are very critical from a business perspective. They also have business and compliance requirements that they need to adhere to when it comes to snapshots. So we'll discuss some of the features that are available to you from EBS to be able to achieve those goals. So the first feature that we're going to talk about is encryption. So EBS offers encryption by integrating with KMS or Key Management Service, and the type of encryption is AES-256. What do I mean by an encrypted EBS volume? What that means is that the data at rest inside the volume is encrypted, but the data that is moving between the volume and the instance is also encrypted. When it comes to snapshots, if you have an encrypted volume and you create a snapshot, that snapshot is going to be encrypted. Now let's say you use that snapshot to create another volume, that volume is also going to be encrypted. But you can always, so if you have an unencrypted snapshot, what you can do is you can just copy that snapshot, specify a key, and that will lead to an encrypted snapshot. You can also re-encrypt a snapshot if you want a different key. So you can just specify that key and copy the snapshot, and that will result in a re-encrypted snapshot. So one important concept to note when it comes to encryption is the default KMS key for your account. So by default, it's going to be an AWS managed key that is your default key, but you can change it. So it's very simple to change it at the account level. And the function of this key is essentially that if you create a resource and you specify that it has to be encrypted, this is the key that is going to be used by default to encrypt it. So if you want to change that to a customer managed key, for example, you can do that. So one very powerful account level setting that we have within EBS for enforcing encryption is what we call EBD, or encryption by default. So it's enabled at the account level, and it's for every region, so you have to enable it for every region that you're operating in. And what that helps you do is that you can enforce it at the account level, and every resource that is created after that point is going to be encrypted by default. So all the volumes that are created and their snapshots are going to be encrypted from that point onwards. So this is a very easy way to just ensure that all your future resources are going to be encrypted. But in addition to that, you might have some resources which might be existing, which are not encrypted at that point. So what you can do in that case is that for unencrypted boot volumes, for example, you can call this API and restore your root volume to an encrypted one. For unencrypted data volumes that you might have, you can just create a snapshot, encrypt it, and then create a volume out of it. And for snapshots that might be unencrypted, like we spoke about previously, you can just copy that and specify the key with which you want to encrypt it. One very powerful feature that we have for snapshots is copying it across regions or across accounts. So customers use it primarily for 2-3 big use cases. So for example, a lot of our customers have disaster recovery requirements where they are required to maintain a copy of data in another region for disaster recovery purposes. So that is where copying snapshots becomes very important. A lot of customers also have expansion requirements. So they might want to launch applications in another region, or they might want to test in different regions or accounts. So in those cases, copying snapshots is very beneficial. This is the new feature that we just launched last week. It's called time-based snapshot copy. So the use case for this is that a lot of our customers, when they copy snapshots, specifically for disaster recovery workflows, they have strict RPOs, or what we call recovery point objectives. So in order to meet that, they need a duration-based experience. So with this feature, what they can do is they can specify anything between 15 minutes to 48 hours, how long they want the snapshot copy process to take. When should it finish, right? So if you have an RPO of 15 minutes, you can just specify that, and we'll meet that. So it becomes very deterministic. It gives you predictability and consistency in your workflows. And you can also use it to just ensure that your copies are faster if that's your requirement. So one major use case, like I talked about, is obviously disaster recovery. But in addition to that, a lot of our customers also use it for testing and development workflows. So for example, if they want all of their data to be available at a certain time every day, they can ensure that by using time-based copy. And a lot of our customers also have requirements for fast copies. So in this case, it becomes very easy to just specify a time and how fast you want the copies to go. And it can be specified per request. So you can specify it per copy snapshot request. And one more cool thing about this feature is that you don't have any concurrent snapshot limits as you do with standard copies. So you can copy as many snapshots you want, provided you stay within the account level throughput quota. The default value for that is around 2,000 Mbps, but it's flexible based on your requirements. So if you think you're going to need more capacity, you can request a limit increase. So this helps you meet your RPOs, just copy your data in a very fast manner if that's your requirement, or to have it available by a certain time. Now we'll talk about sharing snapshots. So when you create a snapshot, it's going to be private by default. So it's not shared with anyone, it's just shared with you. But what you can do is you can privately share it with other accounts, right? So you can specify an account with which you want to share that snapshot, and that account should be able to use that snapshot. You can also share snapshots publicly. So what that means is that any AWS user can access that snapshot. This is obviously not recommended, but a lot of our customers have use cases for distributing this to their users as test data, for example. So in that case, they make that data public. But if that's not a use case that you have, what you can do is you can use block public access for EBS snapshots. This is a setting that you can enable at the account level. And it's very easy to enable, so it has just two modes that you need to think about. One is block new sharing, and the other one is block all sharing. And it's pretty much what the name implies. So with block new sharing, what happens is that any snapshots which might be shared in the future are going to be prohibited from being publicly accessed. So you cannot make a snapshot public going forward, but any existing snapshots that you might have, they will continue to be public. With block all sharing, which is a much powerful setting and something that we recommend that you enable, you will be able to prohibit public access to all your snapshots. It doesn't matter if they're existing, if they are public today or not. So this is just the workflow to enable it. So they reside in the data protection and security settings under the EC2 console. You have the two modes that I talked about, block all public sharing and block new public sharing. And once you enable that, it's enabled within minutes. As you can see, all sharing has been blocked in this example. So if I go and try to share a snapshot in my account, you'll see that the public option has been grayed out. So none of the principals or anyone who is a user can make your snapshot public. The next feature that we're going to talk about is snapshot lock. So a lot of our customers have requirements for worm protection, or what we call as write once, read many in industry terms. So they have business and compliance requirements to ensure that the data is immutable. So snapshots cannot be modified by default. So once you create a snapshot, you cannot overwrite it or you cannot modify it, but you can still delete it if you have the right permissions. So what snapshot lock helps you do is that if you put a lock on a snapshot, what that means is that no user in the account is allowed to delete it. So you can lock it for a certain duration. So let's say you lock it for 30 days if that's your compliance requirement, and that will ensure that no user can then go and delete that snapshot. So this is important in the ransomware protection context, but also from a compliance point of view, there are many regulations, specifically in the financial and healthcare sectors, that require this kind of control to be present. So snapshot lock can be enabled in two modes. One is the compliance mode, and the second one is the governance mode. So governance mode is more flexible than compliance mode. So with governance mode, what you can do is you can there are certain users that you can grant permission to remove the lock if required, right? So if somebody wants to alter the lock, maybe extend the duration, maybe remove the lock, then they can be granted permissions to do that. With compliance mode, it's a more restrictive setting. In that case, nobody will have access to do anything to the lock. All they can do is they can extend the duration of the lock. So they have to really wait till the duration expires to be able to delete it. So this is how you, this is just a console example of how you can enable this setting for your snapshot. So in this case, you can just click on lock snapshot. It will show you the two modes. You can choose the mode that you want to go with. This is an example of governance mode. You can just specify the number of days, or I think it's just days, yeah. So you can specify the number of days that you want to log that snapshot for. This is compliance mode. So when you select a compliance mode, you can also specify a cool-off period, right? So it can be anything between 1 to 3 days. So for the amount of time that you want the lock to be editable. So you can specify a cool-off period. It's optional, just in case you want to just keep it flexible for a few days after locking the snapshot. And when you lock a snapshot, as you can see, if someone tries to delete the snapshot, they will get an error because the snapshot is locked. Also, in compliance mode, settings cannot be changed. Nobody can go and delete the lock or remove the lock. All they can do is just extend the duration of the lock. All right, so now I'll pass it to JP to talk about immutability and ransomware protection.
Thanks, Rabbi. Hello again. Today, I'm going to talk about how EBS snapshots really helps us to achieve the immutability and ransomware protection for RISE with SAP, right? So before maybe proceed with the technical stuff, like to maybe give us a high-level overview or 10,000 feet view about what is meant by RISE, right? And this is a message from our CEO, Mr. Klein. I mean, any partnership is collaboration is a key, right? So we have a really great collaboration with Amazon as a partner. So we use Business AI from Amazon to our entire ERP portfolio to give a better service, a better solution to our customers. And in addition to this, we are using AI services heavily from AWS for our RISE with SAP program, and where we collaborate well with AWS. For example, any large HANA machines, it's a released or large machines. Currently, we are running up to 24 terabyte machine, and next is in the queue. So where we know better than anyone to run HANA machines, right? So we do, or we get a kind of private preview or private instances to validate the entire thing, and we give a feedback, and AWS works on this, and the level is there anything to be improved, then finally we roll it out, right? So this kind of collaborations are not only stick with one particular area, so wherever we see this and collaborations required or meet our experts and AWS experts to bring the better solution or value to our customers. So this is how currently we are working, yeah. And about RISE with SAP, RISE with SAP is a program. Basically, it's designed for our customers, right, to provide a managed service for our cloud ERP, right? So when we talk about RISE with SAP, there are three major features. One is in cloud ERP, so which gives us a future-proof business with a business solution as a cloud ERP to our customers. And second is about the operations, right? So when we talk about operations, it's managed. Since it's a managed service, we are providing with the global standard or standardized way of operating our customer systems in our environment. When I say in our environment, yes, it's an AWS, it's an infrastructure, we use it here, right? And the third one is an SAP methodology. So whenever we do any kind of innovation, we are doing, and very regularly we are updating our cloud ERP solutions, right? It's all innovations, whatever feature we add the features, this will be automatically implemented to our customer system, and customers directly getting benefit out of it, right? Just this about what is mean by RISE with SAP. So any enterprise applications we run, and backup is one of the critical topic. The reason is we always say that it's a last line of defense, right? So something goes wrong for whatever reason, maybe it's any disaster happens, it may be a ransomware attack, or it may be the data center outage, or maybe some natural calamity, right? Whatever reason, if the data, if the system goes down, then backup is only the last line of defense where we can bring the data to run the business as usual, right? So currently, we see the data footprint is keep increasing. The size-wise, it's keep increasing a lot. And if we do this traditional way of backup, pulling the data from the system and uploading to the backup infrastructure, whether it's in whatever infrastructure, maybe it's a vendor-based solution, or maybe the whatever storage in the cloud, right? It's we are feeling multiple challenges. One, because of the data size, the backup and restore time is really high. The second is in resiliency, because when we keep the backup in one location, that should be replicated. So in case if any zone outage happens, right? So still we should have the data to bring back and recover the system back, right? The third is when we are doing the backup with or pulling the data from the system or from the EC2 instance, right? So it should not affect the application performance. Yeah, so for example, one of our large systems may be the 20, 30 terabyte, right? So if you pull the data 30 terabyte in short time, for example, in 3 to 4 hours, we should really use the whole throughput of the storage. So which means during this time, application try to write or try to read, then this performance will get impacted. So this, we don't want to have it, right? Then the next is in lower RPO. For example, if you run the backup and the backup runs for 5 hours or 4 hours, then the restore, these 4 hours or 5 hours is a timeline, is during the backup time, we cannot recover the data, right? So this RPOs is one of the key point for any enterprise solution, right? And the last one is of course, security and encryption. When we keep the backup in some whatever storage, this should be really secured. This should not, even if anything happened, right? So this is not recoverable without proper security measures, right? So how EBS snapshots it helps us to achieve these kind of challenges, right? And come out of these challenges. So I think Surabhi already explained how the EBS snapshots works. So first, it's an incremental snapshots. Because of the incremental snapshots, we have this faster backup and restore time, right? So it's we are running on daily basis. For example, if you run the backup, it don't take 3 to 4 hours time. It's in minutes or a few minutes, right? And the EBS snapshots, by default, it's stored in a regional. So in case if any one of the zone goes down, still the data is available in another region, so that we can create a volume out of it and we can attach to the EC2 instance and bring the system back, right? And as I said, the no performance impact. So since the snapshots happening in the storage level, there is no data we need to pull it from the system and the EC2 level, EC2 instance inside the EC2 instance, right? So there is no impact at all for the applications in terms of storage throughput or memory usage or CPU usage, right? And the flexible lifecycle management. So for example, if I have a system A, system B, system C, and system A, I need a 30 days retention, and system C, I need a 20 days, and system C is in 7 days. So in this way, if you do the snapshots, the way how we are doing this lifecycle management is we are adding a tag for each and every snapshot based on the systems and the system retention period. And based on this value, we are running a Lambda function to read all the snapshots on daily basis, and based on this value, then we do this lifecycle management. So which means that we are getting the flexibility in lifecycle management. Then cost effective, yes, because thanks to incremental snapshots, because it's since we do this incremental snapshot, maybe the first snapshot it takes maybe a little expensive or pricey. But after the first snapshots, it's on maybe daily basis 5%, 6%, or 2% changes based on the system workload. Then only we are paying for only 2% or 3%. So this is really cost effective. Then, as Surabhi mentioned, the whole workflow about the encryption. So we are using the KMS key to encrypt our snapshots. So which means it's both the data at rest and transit are encrypted. So another important one, which almost all our customers are looking for, even we want to implement it, is that it's an immutability and ransomware protection. So how we are going to mitigate these kind of risks, right? So thanks to the snapshot lock. So the moment, we discussed quite long time with Surabhi and team about what exactly we want and how we want to enable the immutability, right? The snapshot lock feature is really, really helpful, and it's quite easy to enable it, and not much to do in terms of infrastructure or whatever, right? So just when we are creating a snapshot, and we can enable it, and it's with the tick and mention the. So what it means by the immutability, right? So data should not be modified after the backup storage, and data should not be deleted, and it should not be overwritten, right? So these all three keys, important features actually, it's fulfilled by snapshot lock. So the moment if we create enable the snapshot lock, so we can mention the retention period, for example, 15 days or 10 days or whatever time, then this is locked. Again, the snapshot lock comes with this in 2 modes. It's in governance mode and compliance mode. Governance mode, we can disable the lock, but in compliance mode, we cannot disable it. So the moment you set it, is in 15 days is in locked, then we cannot reduce it, we cannot remove the log. So that's exactly future we were looking for, and it's available, and we already started using maybe more than 6 months or 9 months now, right? So the moment if we enable the snapshot is logged, so we cannot delete it, we cannot overwrite it, and even we cannot modify it. And addition to this, for example, I took a snapshot, maybe 15 days retention, I made the log for 15 days. Now my customer is asking for, no, I want to keep this backup for another 30 days or say 30 more days, right? So we can go and extend it. Of course, we cannot reduce it. That's it should not be, and this is how it is. It's good, but we can extend it, right? So that's how the snapshot feature, a snapshot log feature, it's really fulfilling our requirement in terms of immutability and ransomware protection. So this really high-level architecture, how we are doing the snapshot, right? So we have an EC2 instance, couple of EBS volumes attached to this, and we do the snapshot of these EBS volumes, and we have a Lambda function to take care of the lifecycle management. So here, there are a couple of more requirements. The one major requirement is that in our EC2 instances, we have maybe 20, 30 EBS volumes attached. We don't want to take all the EBS volumes. So thanks to eliminate or exclude the EBS volume during the snapshot with the crash consistency. Yeah, so when we do this snapshot, again, we also need a feature for crash consistency. The reason is, for example, in case of HANA deployment in our environment, we use more than one EBS volumes to have one file system. So consider we have 5 EBS volumes, and we create a file system out of it using LVM striping. So when we want to do the snapshot, we have to do this crash consistent, all the EBS volumes to be snapshotted at the same time. So this crash consistent snapshot is really works well here. And the second requirement from our side is that we don't want to do this snapshot of all the volumes, because if we talk about the 24 terabyte machine in HANA, so we have other volumes which we no need to take a backup, right? So when we are creating a snapshot, we exclude a list of, identify the list of snapshot volumes which are relevant for the backup, and the other EBS volumes we exclude as a process. So this is a process we are following, right? So first we identify the list of volumes to be snapshotted, then we communicate to the application or database that we are going to take care of application or database consistency. Then we do the snapshot and we enable the log. Once the log is enabled, we also add additional tags for retention lifecycle management. For example, the retention days for this particular snapshot is 20. Then our Lambda function starts reading these values, and based on that, it does the lifecycle management, right? So in the restore process, the data flows another way around. So the snapshots are stored in the regional storage with the S3 storage in the backend, and we create a EBS volume out of it, then detach the existing volume on whatever system we want to recover it, and attach the newly created volume and bring the system back, right? But there is one, I don't want to say it's a limitation, but when we create a EBS volume out of this snapshot, right? The snapshot actually is stored in the regional storage. It's basically maybe the S3 storage in the backend. It's a low performance storage compared to the EBS volume, right? So the moment you create a volume out of it, yes, the volume is created immediately, but you don't get 100% read performance. All the data is stored in this snapshot, still it's coming from the S3 storage or maybe the snapshot storage, right? So AWS is also providing a feature, something called fast snapshot restore. So before creating the volume, what we do, we enable the FSR for the snapshots, whatever we choose, right? And also we can choose which zone this should be. So the data will be copied from snapshot storage to the EBS storage on that particular zone. Then once the FSR is completed, then we can create a volume out of it. In this case, the data is already in EBS storage, and we'll get 100% read performance. The reason is for HANA workloads, the performance is really crucial. So without having this 100% performance in terms of reading the data, right? Then the application running top of HANA, even starting HANA itself, it's really taking good amount of time. Even if it started, all the data will take time to load it into the memory, right? So this will affect our production system. So we cannot use really, without FSR, we cannot really use in the production environment. So this workflow, right? So we identify the snapshot, which is relevant for this particular PIT or the use case. Then we create a volume out of it. We enable the FSR for those snapshots. Then once FSR is completed, we create a volume out of it, and we detach the existing volumes on the machine, and we attach the new volume, whatever we create now. When we are detaching this, we also add a tag about what is the reason it's detached and how long this should be retained, right? Because we don't want to delete the EBS volume which are detached now immediately, because in case of whatever reason, if we want to fall back, still we want to have this information, right? So that's why we keep it for a couple of days. Then after a couple of days, our Lambda function will read this information, and automatically it's taking care of lifecycle management. So these all are the database in our environment currently we are running, and where we use EBS snapshot feature and snapshot log feature. Of course, we are running HANA systems up to 24 terabyte. The next one is on the way. And we are using the HANA scale-out systems, the EBS volumes and EBS snapshots, and of course SAP AAC system and IQ boxes and MaxDB, and also application running on top of these boxes, right? So these all are currently running in EBS volumes, and we are using heavily in EBS snapshots, right? So the numbers wise, we are running, I think, close to 40,000 EC2 instances in our environment, and more than 7,000 HANA boxes in our in AWS environment, right? So the summary is the EBS snapshots really, and with the log, with the compliance mode, it's really help us to achieve the immutability and ransomware protection for our customer systems as a part of RISE with SAP program. Thank you. Any questions? I'm happy to take after this session is over. Thank you.
Cool. Thank you, JP, for sharing how customers using RISE with SAP can protect their workloads using EBS snapshots. For other customers, AWS offers AWS Backup and Amazon Data Lifecycle Manager to help the customers automate data protection of their EBS volumes. Today, I'll focus a little bit of our discussion on Amazon Data Lifecycle Manager, or what we call DLM. So DLM is a policy-based lifecycle management solution for EBS snapshots. Customers create policies, and they use tags to specify the volumes that they want to create snapshots from. In addition, they also specify how often they want to create the snapshots of the volumes and how long to keep those snapshots for. Once the snapshots have been created, DLM will also help customers manage the lifecycle of the snapshot, including actions such as enabling fast snapshot restore, which JP spoke about, as well as archiving those snapshots and copying those snapshots to different regions. The policies themselves are free to create and use and manage, and customers will only pay for the storage costs associated with the EBS snapshots. Today, I want to talk about a couple of features within DLM that is a little bit different to other similar features and services that you might see elsewhere. The first one being automating the creation of application consistent snapshots. So JP already spoke about that in the case of SAP HANA, but I want to talk a little bit about how customers can use DLM for other workloads as well. But before I do that, I just want to talk about the 3 different policy types that customers can create using DLM and how that fits in with our application consistent snapshot solution. On the left-hand side there, you have the single volume snapshot policy type, which is just creating a single snapshot from a single EBS volume. The one in the middle there is creating, as JP mentioned, what's known as a set of multi-volume crash consistent snapshots of all volumes that are attached to an EC2 instance. And I think that's where JP mentioned earlier, you have the ability to exclude the data volume or some of the boot volume or some of the data volumes, temporary volumes that you might not need to create snapshots of. And the third one is creating EBS-backed Amazon machine images, which you can then use to launch another EC2 instance. So the feature that we launched to create application consistent snapshots is based on the middle policy type, the multi-volume crash consistent snapshots. And so DLM works in conjunction with Systems Manager to help create the application consistent snapshots, which is a feature that we actually launched end of last year, mainly aimed at customers with self-managed databases, MySQL, PostgreSQL, Windows applications as well as SAP HANA. And the idea is that when you have application consistent snapshots, as JP mentioned, it makes the recovery of your databases much quicker and much easier as well. Still, those policies that you create with this ability are free to use, and you're essentially still only paying for the EBS snapshot costs. What do you need to get started with this feature? So you need the Systems Manager agent installed and running on the EC2 instance, IAM permissions to allow DLM to initiate the calls on the EC2 instance via the SSM agent, the DLM policy, and what we call the run command document, which contains the instructions to do the querying and the thaw of the database. And here's a brief flow of sort of how that works. You have the DLM policy on the bottom left, and that's really just coordinating the instructions which reside in the SSM run command document. We have a section here with a prescript, which is essentially querying your database and flushing the buffer from memory to disk. Once that's done, once that action is performed on the EC2 instance, DLM will create the set of crash consistent snapshots, which are now application consistent. And then as part of the follow-up, we run the ProScript commands to sort of thaw the database and make sure it's back up and operational. You can run this feature, you can use this feature through the console as well as API, CLA, and CloudFormation. But through the console, this is basically what you see. You have the ability to directly select SAP and VSS backup, SAP HANA, and VSS backup. And what that does is it'll just run the SSM documents that AWS have provided or created for those databases. If you have other self-managed databases like MySQL, PostgreSQL, you can choose the custom SSM document. We actually do have templates for MySQL and PostgreSQL that you can just copy and paste into your own SSM run command document. You select that option on the left-hand side, and you're essentially able to create application consistent snapshots. If your database is sort of built on MySQL and PostgreSQL, you can also use those as well and just adjust it as you need. And so there are some settings as well that you can see to adjust how long you want the process to last, and as well as some of the other retry and other behaviors as well. So that's one feature. The other feature that we also launched last year that you won't see elsewhere is what we call default policies. And what that feature is, it gives customers, especially storage administrators, the ability to easily ensure all EC2 instances and EBS volumes in your account are backed up. At the same time, it reduces cost by not duplicating snapshots for volumes that already have backups. And I'll go through an example of what I mean and how it works. So this is a typical sort of example of what our customers see in their multi-tenant account, right? So you have a bunch of different teams with different volumes, different data volumes, different boot volumes, and they have different ways themselves, right, of creating the snapshots and managing those backups. And so what storage administrators have told us, it's kind of really hard for them to have visibility to make sure all the important volumes are backed up according to the requirements of the organization. And what we have here is highlighted in red, or marked in red, some of the volumes that are not so critical and don't need to be backed up, right? So one thing you could do is just go through and back up all those volumes, right? The snapshots are incremental, but you are still going to incur additional costs if you were to do that. And so with default policies, what you can do is you create a policy within the region and you specify this boundary of volumes that you want to sort of protect. And what default policy does is that it'll periodically scan those volumes and see if there's been any snapshots created of those volumes by any mechanism, right? So in this way, it works with in conjunction with other snapshot creation and management solutions that any of the teams and users might have. If it notices that there hasn't been a recent snapshot created with for the volume, and that's when the default policy will kick in and create the snapshot and then manage it to the end of its retention period. Otherwise, if it notices that another mechanism has created the snapshot already, then the default policy won't create any resources, thereby saving customers cost. So in addition to creating snapshots, we have Recycle Bin for EBS snapshots and Amazon Machine images, which helps customers protect themselves from accidental and malicious deletion. And how customers use Recycle Bin is they create retention rules in their region and their account, which specify the snapshots and armies that should reside in Recycle Bin once they're deleted. And once they're in Recycle Bin, very similar to your computers yourself, you have the ability to restore those resources into the standard area, create a volume from the snapshots, and then attach and use those volumes. And how it protects customers from malicious deletion is what we call rule lock feature that we launched for Recycle Bin. So what customers can do is apply rule lock on the retention rule, so that even if a malicious actor gains access to your account, they delete the snapshot, but the snapshot still goes into Recycle Bin. With the rule lock enabled, the malicious actor is not able to immediately delete or modify the retention rule. And so they'll still have to wait between 7 to 30 days for that snapshot to sort of, for the retention rule to be modified. So it's not something that they can do immediately. And what customers can do is they can a lot of our customers set account level rules at a regional level to protect all the snapshots or armies. Once they're deleted, they reside in Recycle Bin for a period of time. Or alternatively, they can create sort of tag-based rules which protect only specific snapshots or Amazon Machine images. For customers who use account-level retention rules, we launched this feature last month, is the ability to support exclusion tags. And this really is for customers to be able to exclude non-essential snapshots and armies that don't need to be protected. And a lot of it is for customers who are using security scanning processes. Those snapshots are created purely to be able to create a volume to perform the scanning, right? So customers are never really going to use those snapshots for recovery purposes. So in this case, there's no point to protect them if they're deleted by making them go into Recycle Bin, so customers can add exclusion tags to the retention rule, so those snapshots or armies, once they're deleted, will just bypass Recycle Bin. So just to recap, Sruby spoke about the importance of backing up mission-critical EBS volumes through EBS snapshots and some of the security features that we have, encryption, block public access, and snapshot lock. JP gave us a wonderful example of how customers are using those features with RISE with SAP. I spoke about some of the features that we have with Amazon Data Lifecycle Manager. And lastly, we do encourage you to try out some of our recent features, time-based snapshot copy and Recycle Bin with exclusion tags to see if they'll meet your needs. We do have one more EBS-related session coming up in about 40 minutes or so. It's a builder session over at Mandalay where you can really get some hands-on experience on some of the features that we just covered in the presentation. And with that, on behalf of Subi and JP, thank you everyone for coming to our session and enjoy the rest of reInvent.